Hey there, amazing parents. Mrs. Brown here. Welcome back to the Write with Mrs. Brown podcast. I'm your host, Mrs. Brown, and I help parents turn their children into exceptional writers. Today, we're going to be diving into the topic of vocabulary. It's part two because I talked about it in another podcast, but it's just such an important topic that I wanted to bring it back again. And I read a quote that made me think about this. So here's the quote I read this week that got me thinking about you, got me thinking about your kids. It says, "No matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world." And that was a quote from John Keating. And I also thought about the quote, "Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt me." That was a lie because there's a bunch of words that I can think of that were spoken when I was growing up that hurt me. So the point here is that words are powerful and we want to make sure we give our kids the power of words. So if you are wanting to walk away with some easy, actionable things that you can do with your kids to build their vocabulary, be sure to hang on. We're going to be diving into that topic today. So there is this gentleman by the name of Andrew Pudewa. He is the founder of the Institute for Excellence in Writing. I'm actually certified through the Institute for Excellence in Writing as a certified instructor, and he is always emphasizing the importance of children having a rich vocabulary, not just for writing, but for overall cognitive development. And he said it's not just about memorizing a bunch of words, it's about understanding their meanings, their nuances, and how to use them effectively, both in writing and in speech. And so this matters to us as parents with young writers who are probably in elementary and middle school because vocabulary is a key component to good writing. It's a key component of good writing. It's also something that is really helpful for our children to have in order to be successful in high school, college, and beyond. Super important. Before, many, many years ago, before kids and marriage, I was a recruiter, and words are so important when it comes to interviewing. Like, our kids need to know how to get in front of that recruiter and negotiate their salary, talk about what their values are, and communicate their value to an organization, and be able to ask questions to make sure that organization matches their value as well. Maybe we have kids who want to be business owners and they need the words and the poise and the confidence to be able to negotiate these contracts. So words are so important. All of these things start with words. All of that confidence starts with having the words. But I want to address, before we get to the part of my podcast where I give you some actionable items, I want to address something that sometimes we think in our minds as parents. Sometimes we tell ourselves we're not doing enough. And so we do too much to try to reach a certain goal. And so I want you to focus on doing a little bit consistently. Or let me dial that back a little bit. I want you to focus on doing one thing consistently, just one thing to help build your child's vocabulary. So before I give you these 4 or 5 things that you can do, just pick one thing, just one. And I want you to pick something that sounds fun for you and for your kid, that's easy to implement, right? So fun, easy to execute. So, all right, let's go ahead, get your pens out. I'm going to walk you through some actionable things that you can do to help build your child's vocabulary. So, number one, you want to read widely and often. So you want to encourage your child to read a variety of genres, including fiction, nonfiction, poetry, plays. The more they read, the more words they will encounter. So it's really about them encountering words. And you don't even have to do, these huge chapter books. You can probably use a Aesop's fable or a short story. And again, like I said, poetry, and just talk about a word or two. Allow them to encounter and hear the words. Audiobooks are great because, you could just be driving, playing the audiobook and saying, "Oh, that was an interesting word. Do you know what that means?" Just have a conversation. So another thing I want to mention is that, reading part of this program I have. It is the Power Words workbook and course. Your students are reading these fill in the blank stories, and they're filling in vocabulary words that they're working on for the week. And those vocabulary words are connected to words they already know. So their meanings are words that they already know, and they are connecting the meanings of words they already know to words that might be new to them. All right, number 2, you want to use flashcards. I said this in the last one, but I want you to use flashcards with a twist. Most of the time we think of flashcards, you have the word, the vocabulary word on the front, and then you have the definition on the back. But here's the twist. You can actually have the vocabulary word on the front, and you can have a sentence that uses the word in context. This will help with understanding and retention. Or maybe you can have the vocabulary word on the front. You can actually read the sentence with a synonym and say which word means big. For example, big is a word that is probably overused by a lot of our kids, but it's the word that they have, right? But instead, they might want to swap that out with a vocabulary word like colossal or massive or enormous. And you can read the sentence with the word they know, big, and tell them to swap that word out with a vocabulary word. So that's flashcards with a twist. Number 2, you can incorporate new words into daily conversation. Make a game out of using the new vocabulary words in daily conversation. This reinforces their meanings and their usage. So find different ways. I think in the last podcast, I talked about picking a word for the day. And here's a twist on that. You can actually pick a word for the day that is based on something you're going to be doing that day. So, for example, if you're going to your child's favorite restaurant, you can ban a certain word for the day. Like maybe you ban good. No one can say good while you're at the maybe not all day, just at the restaurant. But they can use delectable instead if something tastes good, and because you're going to their favorite restaurant, they will be able to use the word delectable. You might even play around and say, all right, savory, bonus points if you use savory or some other descriptive word for a food environment. So that's a twist on one of the other suggestions about incorporating new words into their daily conversation. All right, number 4, you want to write the new words. Encourage your child to use the new vocabulary words in their writing assignments. This could be essay stories or even journal entries. I didn't mention journal entries last time, but journal entries are a great place for them to play around with words. And you can even just do sentences. You can play around with sentences, having them write just a sentence. If maybe you have a young writer and writing paragraphs and essays, that's too much to ask. Again, you want to keep it as simple as possible and allow them to play around with these new words that they are encountering. And then, of course, playing word games. I feel like this is the best one, number 5, because it's easy and it's fun. So you can play games like Scrabble. Most of us have probably played Scrabble before, but if you haven't, it's a great way to play or increase their vocabulary through games. So you can grab the board game Scrabble. There's a game called Boggle. You can use crossword puzzles, which I talked about before. Crossword puzzles are built into one of the courses and workbooks called the Power Words Workbook for improving your child's vocabulary that I have. So find a game, play the game, have popcorn and fun things to drink, and just play with words. You can even, to add a little twist to that, you might even post a couple of words in your area while you're playing the game and give some bonus points if they are able to use one of those words or spell them with their Scrabble, if you're playing Scrabble, by the way. All right, so those are 5 things. I want to hear from you. Post below, let us know which one thing, okay, you can't pick any more than one because I don't want you to go overboard and do too much. Which one thing are you going to use to build your child's vocabulary? Now, you might be feeling excited about these strategies and want some more support with implementing them. But I've got you covered. What you can do, again, like I said, I have a free download. It's called the 100 Power Words to Help Improve Your Child's Writing. You can grab that for free. It gives you 10 posters that you can use to play any of these games, possibly. If you want extra help, I have a workbook that I've designed that has built-in activities that allow your child to hit all of these markers. They're reading, they're using the words in context. There's fun crossword puzzles. So you don't have to do anything. You just kind of open, print, and go. Everything is curated for you. And then last but not least, you can add the course to that. And there are video lessons that go with each of the posters that are presented in this particular course and workbook. So, anyhow, as I have said, there are so many things we want to do to help our children build their vocabulary, so many things we can do. But most of all, I want to leave you with making sure that you provide a validating and encouraging space for your young writer to grow and build those skills, because really writing is a marathon, it's not a sprint. It takes a very long time. Actually, you probably learn it for the rest of your life. It takes a long time to become an excellent or exceptional writer, but we can definitely give them the tools along the way to build a strong vocabulary. All right, keep on supporting those young writers you have in your life. And until next time, happy writing. Take care, everybody.